Welcome to the Social Change Diaries, the show that looks behind the curtain at everything you want to know about the social justice and nonprofit landscape. I'm your host, Vanessa Wakeman. When we were putting together the list of women that we wanted to interview for season 1 of the Social Change Diaries, today's guest, Ana Oliveira, was at the top of the list. Ana is president and CEO of the New York Women's Foundation. Her efforts on behalf of women and girls is legendary, and for more than a decade, she has led the foundation's efforts to increase grant making to organizations. Today, the New York Women's Foundation distributes $7.6 million annually. Ana served as co-chair of the New York City Council Speakers Young Women's Initiative and is a commissioner for the New York City Commission on Human Rights. She sits on the Independent Commission to study criminal justice reform in New York City and is on the board of Philanthropy New York. Ana has previously held key roles as the CEO of the Gay Men's Health Crisis at the Osborne Association and at Lincoln Medical and Mental Health Center Substance Abuse Clinic. I am so excited to chat with Ana today. Ana, thank you so much for joining us today on the Social Change Diaries.
You are very welcome. It's really a pleasure and, frankly, an honor to be able to be part of this with you.
Wonderful. So I have lots of questions, and so if it's okay with you, I want to dive right in. I feel like I am, in conversation with someone who has lots of answers, and so I would love to get to as many of those as possible.
Absolutely. So,
Ana, a couple of years ago, Chronicle of Philanthropy and NYU's Heyman Center conducted a survey, and they found that about 72% of women in the sector under the age of 34 stated that they one day want to lead a nonprofit. And that's fantastic. What we see sometimes in our experience in working with women who want to be thought leaders, they have worked and performed in cultures, professional cultures, where they were taking sort of the vision of others or sort of managing the status quo rather than having an opportunity to sort of showcase and highlight a bold vision of what they think is possible. How do we prepare women in that way so that they're not just sort of advancing someone else's agenda, but really contributing their voices in a way that sort of shapes the future? Like we know what the world looks like when men are making most of the decisions. How do we sort of re-envision sort of the contribution structure or the decision-making structure in a way that women are able to sort of say, based on my experience, this is how I think, we should be addressing the hunger crisis or, issues around immigration or reproductive rights. How do we prepare the younger women for that kind of experience for themselves and for the organizations?
Yes, that's a very important topic, right? Which I think relates to why is it important for people to follow their wishes and dreams. And it is important because of the unique contribution that people make, because there is actually an added value that when you care about something and when you think about something, when you put your energy, your knowledge, your research, your actions, you actually bring a unique value. So the ability for one to begin to how do I insert my ability to lead in an existing structure, right? And to lead with the vision that I have. So I would say that, and I wanted to say that, I am really, people have been really, I'm going to say radically generous with me, and have seen opportunities for me that I hadn't seen, that I didn't see myself in them. So that had taught me that it is important for us to pay attention to who we choose to be around. So in an organization, right, we go for job interviews, and people are always interviewing us, as they should be, but we should be actively interviewing them. and interviewing them to the things that are important, like the openness. Do they listen? Do they have ways of working that permit people to create, to share ideas, or are they too rigid? Are they too hierarchical? Are they, too, it is this way and that's how it will be kind of organization, So I think it's very important to be aware of the environment that we're in, to be aware of who in the environment is interested in succeeding. That's more important for them than in being right. Women do better in environments where, what we want to achieve is success. Not that what we want to achieve is one person being right, another person being wrong. You know what I mean? Because when you're looking for success, you want people's ideas, right? You want people's solutions. You want a different way of doing things that can help with a problem that has recurring. So I think it's important for women to speak up, to look for environments and to look for people in the environments. When I say look for environments, you're looking at the processes in a job. You're looking at the way that an organization behaves. We will always make mistakes, but does the organization have an openness and a desire to self-correct, right? Does the organization have that kind of commitment to continue evolving? Organizations are very imperfect, and we're all experimenting with how do we relate in a less unequal and in a more participatory way in structures that were created around enormous amount of inequality, So speaking up, looking for the environment, looking for better partners, and knowing, if you are in a situation that does not value your thoughts, your ideas, your contributions, that's probably not the right situation. It's better to give up on the situation than to give up on oneself.
Yes. Amen to that. Amen to that. I totally agree.
Because there will be another situation that values you. You need to do a little work and find it.
Yes. Yes. All right, Ana, I want to talk about you a little bit. So you have had an amazing career. The foundation under your leadership has raised millions of dollars for women and girls. And you've also pivoted a number of times over the years. And I think that has been so critical to the sustainability of the organization, but also to I think it's also a testament to your and your team's ability to sort of see what the needs are and, proactively react, if there is such a thing. And so tell me, in thinking about your own thought leadership, how has your vision and thinking evolved over the years? And how have you been so successful at engaging supporters to buy into your vision?
Relating to supporters and, board members, supporters, our staff team, and the grantee partners, you need everybody. I wanted to say that people think that chief executive officers have this enormous amount of power and this enormous amount of, they can do things alone and all that. And first of all, I like to talk about power as the ability to create in the world what I want to see in the world. Not so much power over people, you know what I mean, like that, but power with people to create the change you want to see. That's kind of, the exciting power that I'm interested in. It's exciting to be able to say, hey, we want to see if we can remove this obstacle, if we can open this opportunity and get the right group of people and the right team that can together make that happen. So that is what I would say about the power thing. And working with donors and supporters, people have very different styles, And Vanessa, what I found that is important for each of us is to be really aware of what is our authentic style and to hone that in and to make it better and more, and it's a better at it and more focus on the audience. If I'm comfortable with my style, then what I can do, then I can focus on my audience, right? I'm not going to be worrying about my style, right? I'm going to be focused on my partner on the other, sitting next to me or at the other chair across the table. So with donors, my style that has been helpful to me, and it doesn't resonate with every donor, but it resonates with a lot of people related to the foundation, is I try to be really real and authentic. Just say, look, this is what we're trying to do. We are trying to go where others haven't been. It is risky. This is the risk that we can see. But look at the potential reward. And wait and listen to what the person is going to say. They may think of other options or risks. The idea to be real, to tell people like it is what you want to do, and to engage them authentically in that conversation with you. So that has been a learning for me, as well as something that has become very important. So let's say that we have our breakfast coming up, right? We will constitute a committee that has 2 co-chairs, sometimes 3. These are women that may be on the board, they may be volunteers, they may be donors, and we will meet with them and say, the breakfast has this kind of energy, this kind of authenticity. And then we will constitute with them a little steering committee. And we will discuss our ideas. They will get better. And, we have found that money follows leadership.
Can you say that again, ma'am? I would like everybody who's listening to hear that, please.
So, it's not like leadership running around the money, after the money and losing one's center, one's purpose, one's authenticity, one's, really added value. But it is saying, look, this is what we could do together. And this is what we need to do together. We need your heart. We need your mind. We need your resources. We need others that, your friends. We need you to think through it with us. We need difference. We think that difference shouldn't be made hierarchical or ranked good or bad. That difference is like spices in a very delicious dish, right, of life. And that we need contrast. We need to be able to leverage different opinions. And when we create those tables, people join because people have to experience that they matter. Many donors think that people are just talking with them because of their money. And that is as utilitarian and demeaning thing of people as we turn around and we devalue people because they don't have money. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So for us, what has worked is also saying when we don't know, is doing that, is engaging people, staying true to our core beliefs and our mission, and saying when we don't know, but also when we do believe and we do know, and our grantee partners have taught us, we need to be very bold about it. And I'll tell you, not everybody's going to take a risk with people, but many people will if you can show them the way and you can show them that they are not alone.
Thank you. That's great advice. Great advice. Ana, talk to me a little bit about the women in the New York nonprofit landscape. Do you think there are any challenges that are unique to women in the New York area? When I think about just how highly competitive it is to fundraise here and to sort of get things done, I'm curious. I mean, you're sitting right in the thick of it. Tell me what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think that there are many challenges because, as you just said, there's a lot of opportunity for people to make a difference, right? And there's a lot of, so we want to position ourselves. Each one of us wants to succeed. There is part of it that is really important that it's the unique value of a place, the unique value of a vision, the unique value of, an organization, a mission. But I would also say, Vanessa, that collaboration is important. I have found that when I can say, we're doing this with X Women's Foundation, and we are doing better this way than if we were doing alone. This is why we think that we can get to the next level faster. When we do things like that, we're also teaching donors that we think that they have enough resources to give to both of us, that we are not perpetuating that paradigm of scarcity that really divides people. So that's one thing. But I will tell you something, a major concern that we have about women in leadership in the not-for-profit world, and that is the enormous odds that we face vis-a-vis men. People tend not to perceive women as competent as men. That it's kind of a thing that people are trying to work with, but in major conversations going on in a variety of industries, right, where women are perceived to not have the tech industry, sciences, and all that. But that's also true about business, right? It's very recent that women are part of the discussion of being fundamentally super competent in business. Look at the number of women CEOs in Fortune 500 is very, very few, and it has decreased, right? So entrusting women with money, entrusting women and believing that women will make excellent decisions on how to use money and that they should be a destination to be funded. So for CEOs, fundraising can be a major obstacle, and we have to really work with that. This is a systemic issue. Then there's the issue of women of color in positions of leadership. And that we haven't made any progress for over 15 years. We are at that 20%, and we just can't keep, breaking that. That's true for men and women of color. And we here at the New York Women's Foundation, we're very concerned because we see in our grantee partners and other colleagues how challenging it is, how much the lack of support, the lack of understanding of what women are bringing to the table, how to leverage cultural differences for the better of an organization, for an expression of leadership that is richer, that, is more encompassing. So I think that we have enormous challenges in New York and beyond, but certainly New York. And New York City is a very wealthy city on many levels, evidently economically, but also the heft that it has, the intellectual capital, the philanthropic capital, the social capital, the activism capital that it has. It's a place that has a very strong spirit and a very strong ability to resist and to move forward, very entrepreneurial. So women in CEO positions and in the C-suite in general, both in the not-for-profit and the for-profit world, we just really need an enormous amount of cultural and institutional work in the perceptions that people have and in the practices that organizations have, about women's leadership.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this week's episode of the Social Change Diaries. I want to interrupt for just a moment to let you know about a contest we're doing to kick off the launch of our show. We're really excited about the launch of the Social Change Diaries. I've personally spent the last 14 years as the founder and CEO of the Wakeman Agency, a social change agency working to amplify the voices of mission-driven causes and the people that lead them. Our podcast is a platform to share our experiences and insights with a wider audience. In honor of the launch of the podcast, we're doing a contest. One winner will be gifted registration to our She Roars Masterclass, our online thought leadership training for women in nonprofits. For 8 weeks, you will spend time with me and other agents of change from the nonprofit community working to build your thought leadership. You can see details about She Roars at thoughtleadershipforwomen.com. I'm really excited about the contest and providing this opportunity to our lucky winner. Now here's how you can win. Just 3 simple steps. First, subscribe to our podcast in iTunes. Second, leave a review in iTunes letting us know what you think of the podcast. And 3, take a screenshot of the review and send it to us at podcast@thewakemanAgency.com. The winner will be notified on November 15th and enrolled in the spring program. All right, let's get back to the show. With our She Roars revolution, as we're referring to it, our goal is to help develop 2020 female thought leaders by the year 2020, which is a very, very ambitious goal. But I do think that if women are able to share their ideas and expertise in a way that disrupts the narrative, then there's more power in our ability to sort of command certain roles in certain spaces and to be able to sit at those tables and get decisions made. Now, tell me, what do you think, from your experience with all of your grantees, what do you think prevents a woman from becoming a thought leader?
I think that there are some internal beliefs, and I think that there are cultural determinants, and then, more like situational and systemic things, which is exposure, to lead, you have to have followers, right?
Yes.
Right? We always, sometimes people forget that, but there is no leadership without followership. So on that level is very important. Women have, I think, incredible skills. We're trained to listen well, right? We're trained to listen well. And I think that's a fundamental skill for thought leadership and leadership in general. The other is the ability to get others to listen to the ideas, to the opportunity, to the vision. Many times we have to weave back that idea, that vision, that set of innovations that we're doing back to the audience, to bring the audience into the vision, okay? Because we are dealing with the stereotype. Is that vision really real? Is that vision really powerful? So I think that is important in order to help with the stereotype that, it's a powerful vision, it's a powerful leadership, it's a powerful set of thoughts and influence that one has. The other is, I think, that prevents us is exposure. And we can do a lot to help each other that way. You're doing it. What you are doing, Vanessa, is a sheer example and power of a thought leader that you are, who you are, that is saying women are thought leaders. Here they are. Do you know what I mean?
Thank you.
That in and of itself does disrupt the narrative, does change the concept of who is a thought leader. And it's important. What I like about also, not only that you're doing it, but you have an ambitious goal, is that you're looking for that tipping point. Am I right?
Yes, you are correct.
Yes. You're looking for that tipping point. Many times in this journey of thought leadership, it is a long journey in the sense that you have to have a cumulative effect. You have to have cumulative exposure. You have to, have opportunities. And I would recommend to each one of us, seize the opportunities. Make them bigger. Seize the opportunities. They do accumulate. They do make a difference. And you never know who is listening on the other part of the audience. There's the audience that we know, and then there's everyone else that we don't know. And that kind of creating imagine an echo chamber that is bigger and bigger, and a resonance to the ideas, to the work, to the possibility is very important. So I think the lack of exposure, when people are interviewing thought leaders, how many women do they invite? When people are setting up a conference and keynotes, and people are setting up, discussions, people are setting up interviews on television, on film, who do they think of, right? Look, who are the talk show hosts in, late night television, right? There's one black man, Trevor Noah now, but there's no women doing that. That is like unconscionable, right? So who people think is a thought leader that other wants to listen to is very much of itself a narrative that needs to be disrupted, which you're doing. And we are beyond grateful for that. But we can do our part too. We can echo you. Do you know what I mean? We can echo you. Every single one of us can multiply what you're doing with an echo.
Yes, we will. We will all roar. We will unapologetically all roar. Yes.
And let me say, it's good for one because, you want to have a life with enormous legacy of being your full self, right? And fulfilling your destiny. But also the world needs it. The world needs that shift, the break of those chains. It needs the full expression of the potential to be realized that we have.
Yes. Very, very well said. And thank you for that. I'm happy to know there's at least 2 people on this team.
Anytime. And we forgot to say this, but in the advice column is, anytime that, the naysayers or the others, start making too much noise, it's really important to reach out to the folks that are in the same forward-moving trajectory.
Yes, I agree. So, Ana, I have a question for you about the concept of radical generosity. I know that's one of the tenets of the New York Women's Foundation. What is your desire, if you had to frame that in the way that women help to elevate other women or support other women, what does radical generosity look like in that way?
Yes. So, we recently, we are now in August, I think 6 months ago, we launched this new tagline for the foundation. And I can tell you it's already influencing others, and we feel very good about that. So, and that is what was there for us and what is there amongst women is the generosity really is unbounded, right? That the generosity gives us the ability to go to the next level and to be not, predetermined with our limits of generosity. So if we were radically generous with each other, we would, for one, include the other in the discourse of self. So let's say the next time that at the New York Women's Foundation, we are talking about thought leadership, and we are going to do a public education event or set up a discussion, we would invite you, Vanessa. We would be radically committed, consistently committed, and determinedly committed, like both on a vertical level of commitment, every time, that kind of consistency is part of radical. And on the horizontal plane, in all the actions we do. So when we bump onto fear, when we bump onto competition, when we bump onto isolation, the idea of radical generosity is the idea of going the other way. So into fear, walk through it to demystify what's on the other side. That kind of determined generosity to not stop. And if we bump into competition, what would I lose? What could I gain with collaboration and a partnership? And if we bump into isolation, why is it? How can I be generous alone? It's very difficult to be generous alone. I have to be connected. I have to be radically engaged. And it's also the idea that generosity is not like a flavor of the day, a flavor of the hour. Okay, I'm just going to be generous a little bit, I'm going to remember that my sister in struggle, Vanessa Wakeman, and I'm just going to remember that for 5 minutes, you know what I mean? That's really not neither radical nor generous, right? Or that I will do it with strings attached.
Right.
Radical generosity also means that there is a shared, clear agreement that is not experienced in the world as a disempowering kind of agreement, right? Otherwise, generosity is not present, right?
Okay.
Abundance, the concept of abundance, versus the concept of scarcity.
Thank you. Well, I love that. And it feels so in alignment with the idea of thought leadership and community and coalition building and movement building and all of the things that I believe are required for us to move forward to amplify the voices of women. So I love the idea.
Yeah.
Ana, what about looking ahead? I sort of shared with you what the vision was for She Roars for 2020. Are there any shifts that you would like to see for women in the sector by 2020? That's when we will be electing our next president. And so what would you hope, what would you hope to see by that time?
I would hope to see that from a very broad base, that women are seizing our ability to shape the world really on our interests, because our interests are the interests of others as well, are the interests of families, of communities, you know, so that we are able to think on our behalf, that we are not just mimicking others, following others without thinking, that we follow as real good idea followers, which are conscious followers. You know, so I'm hoping that we will, as a group, make choices that are beneficial to the lives of women and those around us. In the shifts in the not-for-profit sector, we totally must get to a place where women are resourced, women are well resourced. This idea that not-for-profits are judged by, you know, how little money they spend on things is really it's not an idea that helps us change the world. Not-for-profits need to be judged by the difference they make. So that means that leaders and women leaders need to be fully present, fully resourced. We cannot just be, you know, a small percent. We have to have equity. And we have to have the ability to boldly shape. I want to shift in the resourcing of women leaders in the not-for-profit sector, totally. I want to see a shift in the inclusion of women of color, women that come from different trajectories into not-for-profit leadership, and kind of a warm feeling of possibility and a warm feeling of enormous respect, you know, for the sector as a whole and for women's leadership in that sector. That the thought leadership of women by 2020 is clearly identifiable, you know, that we are able to show the impact of that thought leadership so that others can see how much they have to gain from it as well.
Well, I'm taking some notes on this, and I'm going to periodically, every 6 months or so, sort of check in and index, like, how are we doing on these items? Are you seeing any shifts on your end? I'm not seeing any on mine.
Yes. And you know, Vanessa, I'm going to offer that the foundation would be very interested in doing something with our grantee partners and you to help move the needle that you want to achieve, that we also share in the goal with you.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. We will definitely talk about that. And listeners, you've heard it here. We have proof. We're going to be collaborating with the New York Women's Foundation. Thank you.
And let's do that in within the next year, so that we can accelerate the change that, you know, we would love to participate in the change you wanted to create.
That sounds fantastic. One of the questions that I ask all of my guests, and it's my favorite question because the answers are so personal and yet so perfect. When do you feel most vulnerable in your work? Like, in my opinion, in order to be a thought leader, you have to be vulnerable. You're sharing a part of yourself, your thinking, your ideas, sort of the lens through which you see and witness and participate in the world. And so when do you feel most vulnerable in your work?
It's a great question, by the way.
Thank you.
It's a great question because vulnerability is usually described as a negative thing, right? But vulnerability is a place of great information. It gives us great information, right, about us and about others, and perhaps some hints of how to proceed. So I think that the times that I feel most vulnerable it used to be when I had some idea that I thought would be perceived as totally crazy. You know, that has passed. That has passed. It's what I mean by that is I have been very lucky and generously supported to pursue some ideas, you know, and the ideas are not my ideas. They're usually, you know, thoughts and reflections of collective processes that we're in, right? And we just make an addition to that. But I think that the part that I feel most vulnerable and most responsible and most at stake is when I want to carry forth something that is really important to people. That's when I feel the most vulnerability. If it's, you know, an idea that, you know, I have, but it occurred to me and I've been thinking about it and I see it in the world a little bit and we go some other places, we create, we add to it is one thing. But when, you know, let's say grantee partners or women that, you know, are participants in grantee partners organizations say, this is really, and you see how important it is to people. And it is my job to garner resources, either financial resources or support or, you know, followers to that idea. That's when I feel most vulnerable. And when there's enormous responsibility, you know, the other way. And it's difficult not to deliver on that. You know, it's difficult not to deliver on that. And so that's when I feel most vulnerable.
Well, thank you. Ana, I feel like I can chat with you all day, and this has been such an interesting and insightful and personal interview and an opportunity for our listeners to not only get to know a little bit about, you know, thought leadership and what the journey looks like, but also to get the reflections from someone who has lived it and who is living it and who is an advocate for women. And again, I'm just so thankful for your time and for you sharing everything that you shared during this call.
Thank you, Vanessa. But you can't be nearly as grateful as I am for the work that you're doing, for this opportunity, for, you know, wanting to speak with me and with us here at the foundation, because I'm very much of a product of the foundation as well, and its values and its environment. So I am the one to thank you, and the partnership offer is super serious. We will do something, and hopefully it will be an expression of our appreciation for your work as well.
Why, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. I knew the conversation with Ana would be informative, and I was right. I love the point she made about money following leadership. I find that to be very true. It's something that I observe all the time in our work with nonprofits. In the nonprofit sector, when there is so much competition for financial support, I think we sometimes don't put enough emphasis on how we elevate and share the vision of the leader in a manner that's going to garner support. And so I leave you with a question as we end today's episode. What can you do to attract more money as a leader? As always, thank you for joining me on the Social Change Diaries. And to learn more about our work, you can visit us at thewakemanagency.com.